Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. In Pakistan, the death toll from the collision of two passenger trains in Sindh province has risen to at least 48. Over 100 people were injured when a passenger train smashed into derailed carriages of another train near Ghotki city. Prime Minister Imran Khan has ordered an investigation into railway safety fault lines. UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan have agreed on the need to ensure peace and stability in Afghanistan. Speaking over the phone, Khan reiterated that there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict. The two leaders stressed the need to cut carbon emissions ahead of a global climate conference in the UK later this year. They also resolved to work together to curb the coronavirus pandemic. In Afghanistan, officials say at least 150 Afghan troops have been killed or injured in the last 24 hours in a surge of Taliban attacks as foreign forces withdraw. They said fighting is now raging in 26 of the country's 34 provinces. Earlier in the day, the Afghan government confirmed that a key district in Ghor province has fallen to the Taliban. Right-wing pro-settler Israeli groups have scrapped a controversial march through occupied East Jerusalem after police refused to authorize it. Hamas has previously warned that the march would spark fresh hostilities. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says his government will provide free coronavirus vaccines to all adults from later this month to curb the pandemic. India has so far recorded nearly 350,000 deaths and close to 29 million infections. In Pakistan, 58 people lost their lives to the virus in a day, pushing the country's overall death toll to 21,323. Globally, there are now more than 3.7 million deaths and over 173 million infections. And in tennis, Novak Djokovic completed a third round to beat Lorenzo Musetti in a 5-set contest to enter his 12th straight quarterfinal of the French Open. Musetti won the opening 2 sets on tie breaks but crumbled afterwards before retiring at 4-0 down in the final set. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. At least 48 people have died after two trains collided near Ghotki city in Pakistan's southern province of Sindh. Rescuers said over 100 passengers have been injured in the accident.
Authorities say they are trying to rescue several passengers still trapped in the wreckage. Reportedly, some of the injured are in critical condition at a hospital. They said that the accident happened when the Sir Syed Express hit the derailed Millat Express. Railway officials said about 1,100 passengers were on board the two trains. Prime Minister Imran Khan has expressed shock at the loss of lives. He also ordered a comprehensive investigation into the railway safety fault lines. Meanwhile, Army and Ranger troops reached the incident site and are carrying out relief and rescue operations. The military said 2 helicopters are being flown from Multan for casualties evacuation and speedy relief measures.
UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan have agreed on the need to ensure peace and stability in Afghanistan. Speaking over the phone, Khan reiterated that there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict and that a negotiated settlement is the only way forward. He also said that the members of the FATF should recognize Pakistan's achievements in complying with its recommendations. The two leaders also stressed the need to cut carbon emissions ahead of a global climate conference in the UK later this year. They also resolved to work together to curb the coronavirus pandemic. The British Prime Minister also conveyed his condolences over the loss of lives in a train accident in Pakistan earlier in the day. The Afghan government says its troops have suffered a shockingly high number of casualties in a surge of attacks by the Taliban. Officials said at least 150 Afghan troops have been killed or injured overnight as fighting rages in 26 of the country's 34 provinces. This comes as the Taliban seized a key district in Western Ghaut province, forcing Afghan troops to retreat to nearby villages. The latest clashes coincide with US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad's visit to Afghanistan. Talks between the government and the Taliban have largely stalled amid the withdrawal of the US and NATO troops from the country. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has signed legislation to withdraw from the Open Skies Treaty with the US. Russia had hoped that Putin and US President Joe Biden could discuss the treaty when they meet later this month in Geneva. The Kremlin said the US decision to withdraw from the treaty had significantly upset the balance of interests and forced Russia to quit. Earlier, Russia's upper house voted to withdraw from the international treaty, allowing surveillance flights over military facilities. The US formally withdrew from the treaty during November last year. The Czech Republic says it is hopeless about establishing cordial relations with Russia in the near future. Relations between Moscow and Prague have been greatly strained after a spying row leading to mutual expulsions of diplomatic staff. Czech Foreign Minister Jakub Kulenek said normalization of ties with Russia in the near future is an illusory notion. However, Kulenek believes that it is still necessary to consider the prospects for interaction between the two countries. Kulenek said he is willing to organize local roundtable meetings on the bilateral issues to help finding the solution. The Israeli forces have injured at least 10 Palestinians during a protest against the arrest of activists in occupied East Jerusalem. The Palestine Red Crescent Society said the troops used rubber bullets and stun grenades against the protesters. Later, the Israeli police released Palestinian activists Muna al-Kurd and her brother Mohammed al-Kurd after hours of detention. In statements after their release, the two vowed to continue defending their lands, saying that no amount of arrests can intimidate them. Meanwhile, Israeli police injured a young Palestinian protesting against illegal Jewish settlements in Ramallah city with a live round. Palestine's health ministry said the Palestinian sustained a head injury and was hospitalized. Right-wing pro-settler Israeli groups have scrapped a controversial march through occupied East Jerusalem after police refused to authorize it. Security officials warned against allowing the march over fears of inflaming tensions with the Palestinians. Hamas has previously warned that the march would spark fresh hostilities. In recent days, the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood has seen protests against forceful expulsions of families from their homes. The UN nuclear watchdog says Iran must answer about the discovery of uranium at 3 sites in the country. Speaking to the media, the IAEA chief said it is becoming harder for the agency to negotiate extensions to its monitoring deal with Iran. Rafael Grossi said Iran has reiterated its will to cooperate and provide answers during meetings, but he added that Tehran has yet to come clean on any of the issues. Meanwhile, Germany has called on Iran to accelerate its diplomatic efforts to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. This comes days after European powers said they will not push for a resolution against Iran at a meeting of the IAEA next week. Tehran and the world powers are resuming their 6th round of talks later this week in Vienna. India has recorded 100,000 coronavirus infections overnight, the lowest in more than 2 months. The country has reported over 2,400 deaths during the past 24 hours.
The total number of cases in India is now approaching 29 million, with nearly 350,000 fatalities. Government data shows vaccine inequity is worsening in the country. Urban Indians are getting COVID-19 shots much faster than the hundreds of millions living in villages. Taiwan says it will extend the lockdown for another 2 weeks and schools will remain shut until summer vacation. In Latin America, Brazil has reported 873 deaths and nearly 40,000 new cases overnight. Meanwhile, Australia's Victoria state has registered its biggest rise in local COVID-19 cases in nearly a week. Authorities reported 11 new cases, up from just a 2-day earlier. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.7 million lives and infected 173 million people so far.
In Pakistan, coronavirus has claimed 58 more lives over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has surged to 21,323. It said the virus infected nearly 1,500 people overnight. The number of confirmed cases is approaching 934,000. There are over 47,000 active cases in the country at present. Just over 3,200 of them are critical. The countrywide positivity rate remains below 4% for the 7th straight day. Saudi Arabia has launched the Dubai-2, a joint air exercise involving several Arab countries. KSA, Oman, Jordan, Egypt, Kuwait and Bahrain are participating in the 2-week-long drills. The Saudi Ministry of Defense says the exercise aims to achieve readiness and operational compatibility. Dubai-2 will be carried out in different stages, including planning and implementing flights. China says it has lodged a protest with the U.S. over a brief visit by American senators to Taiwan. In a news conference, a foreign ministry spokesman urged the U.S. to stop any official exchanges with Taiwan. Wang Wenbin said Washington must avoid damaging China-U.S. ties and stability in the region. On Sunday, U.S. Senators Tammy Duckworth, Dan Sullivan and Christopher Coons visited Taiwan to meet government officials. The senators also said that Washington will donate 750,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses to Taiwan. China considers Taiwan a renegade province that must be brought under its rule. In Myanmar's largest city of Yangon, activists have rallied over civilian casualties and displacement during clashes in Chin and Kaya states. They urged people to unite against the military regime. In the Magwe region, nearly 1,000 people drove through the rural parts of Myang town. Earlier, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations called on the junta to free political prisoners. ASEAN envoys met coup leader Min Aung Hlaing in Naypyidaw to discuss the execution of the bloc's 5-point consensus. Meanwhile, ousted Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi's lawyer says her trial will begin on Monday. According to an activist group, the military has killed at least 849 people and detained over 4,500 so far. The leader of the Nigerian militant group Boko Haram, Abubakar Shehu, has reportedly killed himself. A rival militant group says Shehu died after blowing up explosives on himself after a battle. ISWAP leader Abu Musab al-Barnawi said the group offered Shehu a chance to join them, but he preferred humiliation. Reportedly, the warlord died when ISWAP attacked Boko Haram positions in the northeastern Sambisa forest. Shehu was also reported dead last month. Neither Boko Haram nor the Nigerian government has confirmed his death. Ukraine has unveiled a new national team shirt for Euro 2020 emblazoned with a map that includes Crimea. Moscow considers the peninsula part of Russia, but it is internationally recognized as part of Ukraine. The front of the yellow shirt shows the borders of Ukraine in white. A slogan at the top of the back reads "Glory to Ukraine." Inside the shirt is a slogan that declares glory to the heroes. In comments carried by Russian state media, a lawmaker called the design illegal and a political provocation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said on social media that the slogans echo a German Nazi rallying cry. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has arrived in Guatemala on her first overseas trip since taking the office. Earlier, her flight to Guatemala City was forced to return to Joint Base Andrews due to a technical issue an hour after the takeoff. The vice president departed a second time in the afternoon after switching planes. Guatemalan officials, including Foreign Minister Pedro Barolo, welcomed Harris upon her arrival. During a three-day visit to the region, Harris will address the root causes of migration from Central America to the U.S. The White House says the visit will also focus on the region's economic development, food insecurity, and women issues. Harris will travel to Mexico after Guatemala. Peru's presidential election is on a knife edge as vote counting is underway in a tightly contested runoff. Unofficial counts show the socialist and the conservative candidates separated by a razor-thin margin. A quick count put leftist Pedro Castillo ahead of Keiko Fujimori by 0.4% votes. A previous exit poll showed Fujimori leading in the race by 0.6% votes. The new results triggered immediate celebrations in Castillo's hometown of Tacubamba. Both the candidates have called for calm and patience as official counts trickle in. The tight race can lead to days of uncertainty and may trigger social unrest if the final results are questioned. Mexicans have pared back President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's power in the midterm elections. The forecast results deliver his ruling coalition a reduced majority that will make sweeping change more difficult. The National Electoral Institute says the ruling coalition is expected to fall short of a two-thirds majority. It is likely to win between 265 and 292 of the 500 lower house seats. However, the official results are yet to come in. 15 state governorships and thousands of local leadership positions are also up for grabs. The vote has taken place amid high levels of criminal violence, with 91 politicians killed in the election cycle. Thousands of Canadians hit the streets to call for government action over the residential school system. This comes after the remains of 215 children were discovered last month at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Demonstrators marched through the streets of Toronto, chanting, waving signs, and demanding action. They tore down a statue of the residential school system's creator, Adjutant Ryerson, at Ryerson University. Around 17 Indigenous professors at the university signed a letter seeking to rename the university to Axe University. The protesters demanded compensation for the school system survivors.
What they need to do is acknowledge that this was a wrong. What Trudeau doesn't want to acknowledge that it was a genocide. But there's actually been 5 genocides, the 5th one ongoing. So they need to give in and stop fighting it and compensate the residential school survivors. That's one thing. Because they had billions for COVID relief, but they didn't want to pay anything to the First Nations residential school survivors.
Switzerland is going to become the first European state to ban the use of the synthetic pesticides. The decision will be taken after a referendum on 13th of June. Opinion polls suggest that both referendums are likely to pass in Switzerland. Supporters of the ban say the artificial products cause serious health problems and reduce biodiversity. Globally, Bhutan is the only other state that has imposed a complete ban on synthetic pesticides. Zurich is also set to initiate another vote on the same day aimed at improving the quality of the state's drinking water and food. A recent MDR poll showed 48% of voters favored the drinking water initiative and 49% supported the pesticide ban. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In India, at least 17 people have been killed in a massive fire at an industrial plant in Maharashtra's Pune. Officials said there were 15 women among the dead. They said the blaze started from an explosion in one of the machines. A rescue operation has been started. In Sri Lanka, the death toll from monsoon floods across the country has risen to 17. Heavy rains have inundated 10 of the country's 25 districts since Thursday. Authorities say the extreme weather has affected more than 270,000 people and damaged hundreds of houses. Thousands of people are seeking refuge in relief camps. According to the government, relief work is in full swing to tackle the effects of the deadly flooding. In Thailand, researchers are breeding and releasing endangered bamboo sharks to ensure their survival. Details in this report.
In the Gulf of Thailand, researchers scuba dive to the ocean floor to release baskets full of young bamboo sharks into the wild. They hope to remove the species from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature's near-threatened red list. The fish became endangered in recent years because of their popularity with fish collectors and exotic food diners. Last week, researchers released 40 of the brown banded sharks aged between 2 and 3 months in a purpose-built 18 meters deep artificial coral reef. The project has so far helped hatch, nurse and deliver more than 200 bamboo sharks to the Gulf of Thailand. The species is native to the region and also found across Southeast Asia, Japan and northern Australia.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos says he will fly to space next month on the first human flight launched by his space company. In a social media post, he said he will be joined on the journey by his brother and winner of an auction for a seat on the same flight. Bezos and fellow billionaire Elon Musk have been making huge investments on their rocket startups. However, Bezos will be the first to travel into space on a rocket developed by his own company, Blue Origin. The company closed the first round of the auction last month after receiving thousands of bidders from 136 countries. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have announced the birth of their second child, a baby girl. In a statement, the couple said they have named the girl after Queen Elizabeth and the late Princess Diana. They added that both mother and child are healthy and well. Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor was born on Friday at the Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in California. She is the Queen's 11th great-grandchild and is 8th in the line to the throne. The royal couple's first child, Archie, was born in 2019. In South Africa, the number of bees has decreased rapidly due to bacterial disease and human activities. Environmentalists and beekeepers are worried this may lead to a local ecological imbalance. This report has more.
Since 2009, a bacterial disease called American foul brood has invaded the South African ecosystem. Nearly 35% of the local bee colonies have now been infected. A part-time beekeeper, Melissa Harris, says the AFB is a kind of larval disease that is difficult to cure.
So AFB is a spore disease that can wipe out a bee colony. It can absolutely destroy it, and the spores are viable within the hive for about 60 years. So when you have a hive that's contracted with AFB, you need to, unfortunately, kill the bees.
Harris says people can tell if a bee is infected with the disease by its color and the shape of its honeycomb. She added that people stealing honey has also led to a reduction in the number of bee colonies.
They will use knives or any tools that they can. They'll approach the box, they'll kick off the lid, they'll even break it, pull everything out. And it's not only causing the damage for our bees, it's also having a knock-on effect with the environment and the pollination of plants and crops in the area where the bees are working. So it's a lot of damage.
The South African Beekeeping Association thinks the virus may be introduced to the country by animals. Local beekeepers are now calling for drastic measures to protect the insects from the disease and human activities.
In China, a student trying to capture the footage of a university race in Shaanxi province inadvertently ended up stealing the show, serving as a cameraman. During the sprint, Hao Xiaoyang outran all of the competitors in 100-meter dash. As the start gun sounded, he launched into his explosive stride from just a few meters ahead of the athletes. Despite holding the heavy camera gear, he was able to stay well ahead of the sprinters running in parallel to them. Hao's lung-busting efforts earned him wide praise from the Chinese netizens. Michaela Seal's I May Destroy You, about a woman coming to terms with assault, was the big winner at this year's BAFTA Television Awards. More about the other winners and details of the ceremony in this report.
The stars of Britain's small screen celebrated their work at the BAFTA Television Awards, hosted in West London's Television Centre. Themes of race and equality dominated several of the evening's winning performances. Michaela Cole, the star and creator of drama series I May Destroy You, was the big winner of the night. She took home the awards for the leading actress and best miniseries.
I want to dedicate this award to the Director of Intimacy, Rita O'Brien. Thank you for your existence in our industry, for making the space safe, for creating physical, emotional and professional boundaries so that we can make work about exploitation, loss of respect, about abuse of power, without being exploited or abused in the process.
Irish actor Paul Mescal was named Best Actor for his portrayal of Connell in the hit TV series Normal People. The Supporting Actor prize went to Malachi Kirby for his role in Small Axe. Meanwhile, Raiki Ayola won the award for the Best Supporting Actress for her role in namesake film Anthony.
Thank you so much, BAFTA. Thank you for voting. Ladies, I'm really honoured to be in your company. I'm so honoured to be in your company, every one of you. Thank you for thrilling us with your performances.
Many nominees attended the awards in person at the London ceremony, with indoor gatherings now allowed in England following a partial lifting of lockdown.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. And now the business updates. China has recorded its fastest import growth in 10 years during May. Customs data shows how surging commodity prices fueled the progression. Imports increased 51.1% year-on-year last month, picking up from 43.1% rise in April. China also posted a trade surplus of over $45 billion for May, wider than nearly $43 billion in April. However, Beijing's export growth for the month missed expectations. The U.S. stocks have fallen as investors remained on the fence ahead of the key inflation data later this week. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite opened nearly 0.1% lower. The S&P 500 fell nearly 0.25% at open, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average Index landed in the negative category, opening close to 0.25% down. Meanwhile, oil prices fell as investors awaited the outcome of the latest talks between Iran and the world powers over a nuclear deal. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.